Come on in and sit down. You cut the hardcore crew chewing the fat. You cut us shooting the shit. You cut us in the moment.
Hello everyone, welcome to this special edition of In the Moment. I am your hardcore host, Rick Head, and we got the whole hardcore crew with us tonight. First, from Stoke Haunted, he is the son of a bitch, Andy. Andy, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing fine, and I hope all the listeners are getting ready for the big one.
Of course, we have the incomparable Lance Moss over at youtube.com/Lance Moss TV. Lance, how are we doing?
Killing it like the Superfly.
If those of you who don't know what's going on, to that reference, Jimmy the Superfly Snuka has been arrested for murdering his girlfriend, which was probably about 20 or 30 years ago, and they just finally caught up to him.
32
Thank
years
you very
ago,
much.
and the murder weapon was a coconut.
And of course, tonight we have our special guest, who's always been an HWR family member. He is classic wrestling manager Joseph Knight. Now, the reason why we're having this special event is, well, Joe needs to air some dirty laundry about the independent wrestling business. So, as I said before, he is a wrestling promoter. Joe, I'm going to kick it over to you, and on fire away.
All right, fan. Thank you very much, Rick. Well, let's first start, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be a direct shoot. It's also going to tell you the behind the scenes of wrestling. You've seen it on WWE, how they run the company. You've seen all their documentaries. You've probably seen documentaries on YouTube. No, that's a cleanup version. This is not a cleanup version. So this is basically going to chronicle the CWA and other promotions I've dealt with. So let's put this direct out there. First of all, this past Saturday, we were going to do Summer Bash 2. It was going to be a big summer show. We were going to get a lot of things done, and it was going to be a big thing. Now, fans that probably have followed us on Facebook or listened to the program, you know the promotion, how I run it, the Classic Wrestling Association. You've heard me talk about it. You heard how basically we're always going to put on shows and so forth. Well, let's start from the beginning. To put a wrestling company together, you need to have an idea what you're going to do. This is not just, okay, I'm got a ring, guys, get in there and wrestle. That's what some mark companies do. I like to run things legitimately, like a business, because you have to think in that way. So I sat down, did a whole business plan, what I wanted to do in 5 years from now, long-term goals, what I need, and how everything's going to transcend. Then comes storylines. Then comes talent. So all these things be put together. Well, what I did was I started looking for partners, investors, business people that want to get into professional wrestling. And fans, let me say something. It's not easy. Wrestling is not as popular as it used to be. A lot of businesses and a lot of business individuals do not want to get involved in professional wrestling unless you're the WWE. That's the only thing. So it takes a long time to sit down to a lot of meetings, to a lot of people, to try to convince one person or two to get involved in the company. And then I'll tell you how other mark companies get their guys. Well, I sat down with one individual, and he didn't turn out well. So here I am. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And a buddy of mine, one of my talents, he says, hey, I got a friend of mine. He's a business guy. He owns real estates. He owns businesses. He wants to get in the wrestling business. You know, talk to him and see what you guys can come up with. Gave me his number. I call him up. We had an interesting talk. I'm explaining to him direct from the hilt what I'm looking to do. I said, we're not making a little mark company. We're not making a little company that's just going to be regional, and this is going to be how it is, and you were putting on shows every month just to basically put shows on every month. Explain to him the long-term goals, how to make money, my experience. And for fans that don't know who actually I am, let me tell you a bit. I was trained by Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, both as a manager and as a promoter. I learned booking, I learned promoting, I learned how to be a manager through Eddie Gilbert. I got my first chance as a manager by Jim Cornette's Smoky Mountain Wrestling. I was hired by Tim Horner. If anybody remembers Tim Horner. got some business experience there, went back up to the Northeast, worked for various companies, even when Eastern Championship Wrestling was around. I got one-shot deal there. Worked one time for Dennis Caluso in the NWA. So I have some experience. Even trained a couple of guys, up-and-comers. Back in the day, I have worked with Homicide, Loki, Devon Dudley, or Brother Devon. I've worked with even Charlie Haas and his late brother Ross, who, God rest his soul. So I've had my time training, working with various known individuals in the business today. So I said, let me make a wrestling company. I had a successful wrestling company from 1994 to 1999, the World Wrestling Organization in New York City. With every show, we threw in 300 fans. We had the upcoming Homicide, upcoming Loki, all these guys that you see now today, pay-per-views. We had them in our little territory. Well, after 1999, I wanted to take a break from the business, wanted to get away. 2 years ago, I decided to get back into business, recreated the WWO. The show went out well, but my partner at the time was a mark for ECW, and he wanted to bring in guys who should never even step into the ring. So I sold the rights to him. I said, here, take the company. I don't want to deal with this. And I restarted, and I started the CWA. So now we fast forward to today. Spoke to an individual who my friend referred to. We had a good conversation, told him the plans. The guy was on board. He says, Joe, I'll give you $12,000 legitimate. I had a check, and I checked it out with the bank. It was legitimate. And I said, okay, great. Let's get the talent. Let's book a building. Let's get everything. Let's try to get this thing taped for television. I advertised it crazy everywhere. I spoke to Rick here to get him and his crew to come down to do a live show and to film it and syndicate the show out. We had everything in plan 3 days before the show begins. The investor comes up and he says, hey, I was just talking to a couple of friends of mine who were wrestling fans, and they said if I'm investing money into this company, I should be world champion. I did a double take. I says, I'll just call him Guy. Guy, you can't do that. Let's stick to what we have right now. Oh, no, man, I want to be a world champion. Who do I got to wrestle? Blah, blah. And I says, well, no disrespect, but you don't look like a wrestler. You're not trained as a wrestler. Plus, our so-called world champion is ECW legend and original Jason Knight. And he says, oh, I'll get in the ring. I says, and it was a back-and-forth type deal. The guy became a belt mark. He wanted a belt. Now, and again, he wants to be a representative of a company. You don't give a belt to someone who doesn't look like a wrestler, nor has been trained. Many mark companies do that, and you can see the shit work that they put on month after month. I said, no. We have our champion. We have our storylines. We have everything in place. Let's get past this show first. We'll talk about it. Well, we hang up. He says, okay, no problem. Hours later, he calls me. He sends me a text, and he says, hey, I decided I'm not going to invest. I canceled the check, and, sorry, but, I don't want to do this. I want to be a champion. That's it. I sent him a message, called him, never answered my call. Sent him a Facebook message, never responded. So here I am. I'm like, whoa, okay, we're 2 days away from our show. And now the finances that were supposed to be put in are not there. For me, I could put it in 2 weeks. Oh, I could put it in 2 weeks, no problem. But it's too late to do anything about it. I sit back, and I'm thinking in my chair. I'm talking to my road agent, and I'm like, hey, this is the situation. This is what we got. The guy became a belt mark. He decided to sell out the company because he wanted a belt. He couldn't understand it. He couldn't look at it as a business sense and say, hey, this is what we described. This is what we talked about. This is how you do business, and you wanted to look for yourself to be an individual that wants to be the man of a company, the champion of the company. Forget about making your money. Forget about everything else. It just aggravated me. So when I said no, for not only for pride reasons, but for business reasons, you bring this guy out, he wins the belt, he wins the title from Jason Knight. Fans are gonna laugh. They're gonna wait a minute, this guy makes Rey Mysterio look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You don't do that. That's bad for business. Your company will be laughed at. So we're sitting back, we're discussing, and I says, you know what? We got to cancel the show. We got to cancel the show. We won't have the money at that time, and we can't depend on the crowd. One thing in all wrestling companies, you cannot bank on the number of tickets sold, because you never know how many fans are going to come through that door. You could rent out a 3,000 seat building, and you might draw 5 fans. Wrestling hasn't been that popular to draw many fans to events, especially independent events, unless you're established. So we said, screw this. We canceled everything off. We got out of it. I called Rick up. Rick, hey, we got to cancel this. I'm sorry, buddy. Called the talent. Explained the reason why to the talent. My talent decides, well, you're canceling the show. We're going to put you on ignore and not talk to you anymore. And they take me off of Facebook, put me on ignore, don't talk to me. And I was like, hey, guys, I'm doing the legitimate thing. I'm doing it so you don't get stiff of payment. How would you come down? You come down, you work, you're putting your body on the line, and you get stiffed. You can't get paid. I'm doing the right thing. Every other company that they work for, mark companies, they get stiff time and time again, and they continue to go back. I'm not going to name companies, but there's a lot of northeastern companies that stiff a lot of talent and do things for themselves, for the owner's self, not for the talent, not for the business. So I said, you know what? Okay, fine. You know what? You want to be like that, folks? Go ahead, fine. That just made me more pissed off. So hanged it up, didn't bother doing it, canceled everything. My partner calls me up, my road agent. He says, hey, Joey, got something to tell you. I talked to the people from the Boonton Elk Lodge where we're going to put on the show. 300 fans were at the door hoping to see a show. 300 fans in a place that holds 180 fans. Okay? Of course, not only did that shock me, but it kind of pissed me off. So I called my friend who's an Elk Lodge member, and I said, hey, what's going on? Was this true? Not that I didn't believe my road agent, but I needed to get the facts directly from a member. He tells me, yes, fans were all waiting outside, 300 of them. They knew the show was canceled, but they came anyway to support the company. You know how that made me feel? That we had 300 fans willing to come in, would have paid for the talent, would have paid for everything in one shot. I would have walked away with money in my pocket, but we had to cancel because there was no guarantee we were going to have those 300 fans. So now, fans, those are the situations that legit promoters go through. You got to go through insurance problems, legal problems. You got to go through financing. And there's a lot of mark companies out there. If you look up YouTube, you'll see a lot of garbage that they bring in anybody off the street, stick them in a bunch of wrestling tights, and these people can draw 10 fans. There was one of my talents, I'm not going to mention his name, saying, well, Joey, you should have hired a couple of names. And I said, we don't need names. Our product is good enough. Fans have to get used to who we are. So I said no to that. There's a lot of problems in professional wrestling on the independent level. It's not as great as a TNA or WWE. There's a lot of companies that steal money from talent. There's a lot of companies that will take the money from the fans and leave. The owners will take the money from the tickets and leave the building and fuck the fans, fuck the wrestlers you hired. If a wrestler gets injured, oh well, too bad. Nothing we can do about it. Hold your head still. Hopefully the ambulance will come on time. I'm not like that. I cannot be like that. I came from a background where wrestling was respected. Wrestling was, you treat your talent with right, and you treat them well, and they will treat you well. Well, now you look at today, and a lot of the talent are marks for themselves. A lot of people, marks for themselves. Then you got the smart marks that want to see former WWE talent, and they want you to spend thousands of dollars. That for me to bring in one current former WWE talent will be like 3 or 4 shows. It'll be the amount of 3 or 4 shows. So I'd rather build a product where fans can respect the talent, respect what we bring out, and enjoy the product. But apparently, business people don't want to see that. And that's what the issues that I've had. So, guys, that's basically a breakdown version. So if you got any comments, any questions, you can shoot it at me right now.
Well, as was, you and I talked about it, and, you told me pretty much the more deep in details, which we won't go into for obvious reasons. And, Joe, I can honestly say that when you talked about independent wrestling companies that hire marks, there's another company that I know of, which I won't name. A few years ago, they had hired the Rock and Roll Express. Now, for those of you who don't know the Rock and Roll Express, they were big in the 70s and 80s, and pretty much since then they've been almost, out of the loop. Only the really marks love them, and they hired these guys for $5,000. And, they paid for these guys to show up. They did, I think, 2 or 3 shows, but the problem was there was nobody, there weren't enough fans to cover the money after they paid, and the owner was dead broke. He had to actually sell his house.
And again, Rick, not to cut you off, but you see, that's what you cannot depend. You can't depend on tickets. So a person in my position, you have to have that money on hand. Could I have the money beforehand? Absolutely. But I'm looking at an individual to put down the funds so we can expand the business, make it better. You could see this is not going to be just another indie show. This is going to be a launching of a product that, give it 3 months, you would have seen a storyline develop, and networks would have been interested in. We had a lot of plans for this show. Not only would they got to see some new talent come out, but they would have seen a documentary, a true behind the scenes, not this beyond the mat stuff that it's all catered and kissed up from the WWE or WWE led documentaries that you only hear from the WWE side, not from the true backgrounds. Here's a legit thing where you learn how the ring is built. You learn how real coordinating of the talent is. And all this stuff is what's going to be presented. It would have been a 2-part series where fans got to see the show, and they would have got to see a documentary. And that didn't happen because people have to be marks for themselves. It's so frustrating when you want to put a legitimate company out there that protects its talent, that follows the state athletic commissions and the legal stuff, and people just don't want to deal with it.
Now, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that's a little bit off topic. Well, not off topic, but a little bit hard questions. Now, you talked about this guy, we won't name him, who gave you the check up front. And my question is, why didn't you cash it beforehand? Why didn't you? I mean, is there any reason why you just didn't say, "Hey, all right, I need this money now. Let's cash the money now so I can start working on things"?
Well, see, that's normally what I would have done, but as part of per agreement, we had to put it for at least 3 days before the show. It was post-dated for that day. Funds have to be released on that day. He wanted to know that everything was all set, everything was gone, and we're going by legalities. You can't just do something that if you cash a check without nothing being settled, it comes down to a point where, this individual can claim you stole my money. And as soon as you sign that check and it goes deposited, yes, you did steal his money, even though he gave you a check. So you just can't do something like that. And even legal companies will not do that. You have to basically go by however they want you to deposit it, however time frame they want to release the funds. So, there's a lot of things involved when it comes to that. It's easy to say, yeah, go cash a check, but you can't do that because there's a lot of legalities tied up into it.
Yeah. Now, I know that you said this guy was pretty much, a mark for the belt. He wasn't even meant to be a wrestler or even trained to be a wrestler. Now, again, I have to play devil's advocate here. Would it have been easier just to have this guy come in as, to fight Jason Knight and maybe have one of Jason Knight's heels come up and, screw over Jason Knight where this guy just gets the fall? Well, did you even think about that possibility?
It would have been a possibility to do, and we did discuss stuff like that. Again, that was one of the options that we talked about. I said, hey, you know what? I can have this guy come in and screw Jason for the title, and you win. One of the ideas, fans, this is, there's no kayfabe here. We would have played it off that Jason challenged somebody challenged one of the fans. The guy would have jumped over the railing, said, yeah, I'll do it. Okay, fine. We would have done it that way. It would have been like, oh, look at this kid. He can't even, he looks like, he makes Steve Urkel look like the Incredible Hulk. He laughs a lot. The kid will try to tack down Jason. Jason will shove him down. We went through that whole scenario, and he said, no, I don't want to look like a fan. I want to get in tights. I want to get out there. I want to wrestle. I want to beat him one-on-one. And to put it like this, to put this guy in a pair of tights would have looked like Gandhi wrestling.
All right, well, you know what? I'm going to give the other guys a chance to ask some questions. Andy, I know you had a couple of questions. Okay, I guess you didn't.
Yeah, Andy, very, very, very articulate. I agree.
Yeah, I think
the
questions I was going to ask, I think, have already been answered. But one thing it really peeves me is that, is it the WWE? Why do people now, even his friends suggested that you should be the champion. Why do people seem to think that they can become a champion? I mean, if he'd sponsored something like a NASCAR race, would he expect someone give him $100,000 car to go and drive around in?
You know, here the situation here is, you know, the individual, you know, he's a legitimate businessman, and he has businesses, he has real estate. I'm not going to go further into his background, but he was also a wrestling fan, and I guess one of his dreams was to become a wrestler. One of the things I am going to say is, one of my talent asked me, well, why don't you just give him a belt? You know, make the Money Mark belt and just hand it to him and say, here, you're a belt. Here's a belt for you. You know, slap him on the back. Be like Barry Horowitz, or I forgot who the guy who used to slap his back in the day. Barry Horowitz. But I said, guys, let's look at this individual. You cannot simply hand this guy a belt. It doesn't look right. It's going to kill the business. People are not going to believe it. Because one of my main aspects is, and I may be wrong, I may be a bad promoter on this, But I want to make wrestling look legitimate. I want to bring back kayfabe. I want to bring back where you can believe wrestler A can beat wrestler B. If you're a cruiserweight, you don't go beating a super heavyweight. If you're Rey Mysterio Jr., you're not going to beat Yokozuna or the Giant. You know, you're gonna need a whole army to take one of those guys out. It's like having you're gonna have a little midget like Hornswoggle take on Brock Lesnar, and Hornswoggle wins. You know, and there's no interference. It just the match goes, and Hornswoggle maybe gets a leg trip and knocks Brock out. You know, you gotta make wrestling believable. That's why wrestling today is not respected. That's why today fans, you know, networks don't want to see an independent company. They want to see a company that is just in the same level as a TNA or a WWE. They want to see a legit company with a Titantron. They want to see the stage. They want to go. I've sat down with network executives from ESPN, from Comcast Cable, from various cable companies, and they all want, well, can you provide a WWE type product? Sure, if you're going to sponsor it. Oh, well, we can't do that. Then don't ask me for it. So it's, you know, that's what makes wrestling so hard to sell. And you have to find investors or money marks. And fans look up on Facebook, bad wrestlers exposed and trash back wrestlers, and you'll see the kind of bad wrestlers are out there that mark companies hire. So going back, you know, I could have gave a guy a bogus belt and say, here you go. The guy would expect it to want to defend the belt, and if you're not trained, he's going to hurt himself. You're going to hurt the talent in the ring with you, and you're just going to make it's going to be so bad that the fans going to feel so insulted. They're going to ask money back from 2 shows ago. So that's why I didn't go along with that scenario. And believe me, I do a lot of creative work. There's no way you can come up with something that's going to look good on paper to see, for the fans to see, and they're going to agree with it. Anybody else?
Lance, over to you. I think you had a couple of questions.
Yeah, one, I think I know the answer to this, but some people listening to this might not. How often does this legitimately happen that, let's just call money marks back out like last minute?
From what I've heard from many independent companies, very legit ones too. There was one, I'll give you an example, and again, I can't mention names, but they hired Kevin Nash. They hired, I forgot who the other individual was. I can't remember his name, but they hired Kevin Nash, somebody else, the Honky Tonk Man. And at the last moment, the money mark said, well, guys, I just can't do this. So they pulled out. And what happened was this promoter sat in the locker room with a bunch of talent watching him get dressed with, I can give you how many fans were in attendance. Now, remind you, he has Kevin Nash and he has the Honky Tonk Man. 32 fans showed up. Now,
wow.
Kevin Nash is not cheap, nor is Wayne Ferris, the Honky Tonk Man. So you can imagine this individual had to almost sell his house and car, and he had to pull out money out of any place just to pay these people off. They couldn't pay the talent, but you had to pay the names. Another person in Connecticut, he saw me run a show, and he says, man, you know how to run a show. I'm going to do the same thing. So he tried to do a company in Connecticut. And again, depending on a money mark, the money mark said, nope, I'm pulling out. You know what? I don't want it. I changed my mind. This guy had to go beg the promoter had to ask his wife to pull out money from her funds to pay off a talent. And one of the talent was one of my guys. And it happens all the time. And there are some guys who pretend to be money marks and they don't have money at all. So there's a lot of bad business out there in professional wrestling. No matter how well you want to do the business, You got to be careful with it. And even the most reputable individual who's going to donate, who's going to invest money, could back out. And if you don't have no way of backing that up, you're going to end up falling on your face. And unfortunately, and let me go back to the situation, when I found out 300 fans were there, I kicked myself in the pants. But you know what? People says, well, why didn't you do the show? Well, can you guarantee before that show that 300 fans were going to show up? No, you cannot. What am I going to do? Sit in the locker room with some talent that looks at me and say, hey, we hope to get paid this night, and you can't because there's not enough fans out there? My experience, you don't do that. You don't depend on ticket sales. And a lot of people, unfortunately, mark companies stiff their talent, either put on a bad show that fans don't show up, or they don't advertise well enough and fans still don't show up. And they hope that money from the fans pays your talent. It's a lot of that goes on in business. That's why you don't see a lot of other legitimate companies out there.
Now, aside from the money issue, which and the mark issue, which obviously has been a big problem in independent wrestling, but there's a lot of problems that we talk about in pro wrestling, like the WWE, and that's like the politics in the back. And I'm wondering, how much does that really exist on the independent scene?
I'm sorry, Rick. Say that question again. It kind of broke up on my end.
Oh, the question I was asking is, we talk about how there's politics in the back of professional wrestling, and I was wondering how much of that is an issue on the independent scene.
Oh, it's a great issue. Let me tell you, you get a lot of talent that will try to force themselves. No, let me step back a bit. There's a lot of talent out there that try to hold you up by saying we want more money or we're not going to do the show. There's a lot of I want to do this, I want to do, I want to be the champion, or I want to do this, or don't hire this guy, hire me. There's a lot of that business. It's a lot of politics, and then there's individuals that try to turn it around on you and say, hey, don't work with him, work with me. Even named talent will try to go up to you and hit you up for money, for more money than what they're worth. It's called the Ultimate Warrior Syndrome from SummerSlam, if you guys remember. You see that all the time,
When you've got talent booked, why is it that, maybe it's just me, but why, like you mentioned in your rant, wrestling fans seem to think that the answer to everything is to get an headline star. Where do they think that the small companies are going to get the money from? Do they think people like Razor Ramon's going to wrestle for $25? Do they live in, like, cuckoo land? Because it doesn't take an idiot to work out. Once you've got that WWE mark on your back, you can demand stupid amounts of money, even 10, 15 years after you've left the company, and that's how most of these guys make their living. It makes me laugh when, I won't mention any wrestlers' names, but you get wrestlers who've actually worked for the WWE, slag off the WWE, but when they go and do an independent company's wrestling show, it will come and say, blah, 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 ex-WWE star. They rely on the WWE for their paychecks. So why do wrestling fans seem to expect that you've got to have headline stars? Like you say, you should be building up your own talent.
This is in the business is called smart marks. Smart marks are those fans that don't want to see the average local talent. They want to see the WWE people. They want to see all these guys who came off, even if they're jobbers on WWE, they want to be brung in. There's also talent that wants to be that are former WWE talent that says, hey, I'm a former WWE talent. I want $15,000 plus a hotel, plus a plane ride, even though they live like a state away. it's a situation where the smart marks want to control a promotion, and they said, we don't want your talent. You want our money? Bring in these names. One company, and I have a lot of respect for them, so I won't say who they are, but they went from a regular independent company like us, and this was years ago, and we were their direct competition, and we were putting on big shows with local talent and with storylines. Fans loved the storylines. We took a guy that they had, and because they used to beat him up as he was their hardcore jobber, we brought him in, gave him a new gimmick, a new look, and actually I sat down with the kid and told him, you're going to wrestle. You're trained as a wrestler, not a piñata. And guess what? The fans went crazy for him. We put him in wars against Homicide at the time, when Homicide was starting out. And his stablemates were Loki. And it was such a big thing that our competition said, well, you know what? Well, we can't beat Joseph's promotion. Let's go and let's hire some names. So what they did was they started bringing in names. Well, at the time, they started bringing a lot of ECW names. Well, our fans were still watching us. So they had to take it a next step and started bringing in more fans, more names. So what happened was now the fans that they had were smart marks. They weren't true wrestling fans like what we had. They were smart marks who says, look, I don't care about Indie Jobber 1 or Indie Jobber 2. I want to see, I forgot who it was. I want to see Tommy Dreamer. I want to see the Sandman. I want to see DX. I want to see the Horseman. And this company had to revolve all their shows around name talent, raising a budget close to $50,000 a month and hoping that the ticket sales will equal that. And tickets were like $20 a pop. So, fans can help a promotion, and the smart marks can ruin a promotion. So, and then there's wrestlers out there, name talent, that will try to literally hold you up for more money or demand tons of money. Rick, you mentioned the Rock and Roll Express. I have the utmost respect for Ricky and Robert. Okay? And they try to hit me up for that huge amount that you said the other guy had to pay. And I said no. And I was a true businessman, and I explained my reasons. They came back at me, first Ricky, and again, Ricky's an awesome individual, and he came back at me, then Robert contacted me, and next thing you know, boom, they lowered their price because they knew I wasn't a mark. They knew I was a legitimate business person. And that's what professional wrestling is missing. So, hopefully that answered your question, Andy. Smart marks ruin the business.
Yeah, I mean, these smart marks, sorry, Rick, these smart marks that want these big professional stars, don't they realise when you go and watch a WWE event, you're probably paying $50 minimum for a ticket, and when they go and watch the independents, they're paying $10, $15?
When an independent company has to hire a big name, their ticket price has to go up at a WWE ticket level. And believe me, WWE performs they come to the arena where I live. In fact, they're coming up the end of the month, and I'm going to it, and tickets are from $10 to $15 to $25 and up. I can put out a product that fans are going to look at and say, I like that, because it has everything. It has the cruiserweight, it has the women, it has the tag team, it has the gimmicky guys. It has the comedy spoofs. It has the skits. It has the no-nonsense wrestlers. Fans, for $10 a pop, you're getting a complete package. And smart marks don't understand, and some fans don't understand when you demand a name. Okay, fine. I'll bring in Dolph Ziggler. But that means your normal average ticket per seat anywhere in the arena is going to go up to $50. $50 a pop. Nobody's going to spend $150 to bring, let's say a father's going to bring two of his kids to see Dolph Ziggler, and the rest of the undercard is local talent.
I don't think some of these smart marks ought to come and live in the UK, because if I told you how much I had to pay, I mean, I've been to see the WWE, Raw, Smackdown, I've even seen the ECW, WWE version in the UK 18, 19 times now, and every time I go, there's normally me, my girlfriend, and my son. There's normally 3 of us that go, and I've had to purchase 3 tickets, and it's cost me £300. That's £100 a ticket. Talking in dollars, £100 is about $150. So that's $450 to see the WWE, a Raw show. We're not talking about a pay-per-view. We're not talking about your SummerSlam or WrestleMania. So they ought to consider themselves lucky that us in the UK are paying best part of $500 to watch something that they're paying $10 for and expect get the top celebrities.
Absolutely. See, and my way of thinking is, I could be like any other mark company and just hire one name or two, and the undercard stinks, because you got to have guys who are literally free, who are lousy wrestlers, who are just going to come in and perform, and then you're going to have good guys that and girls that perform well, and you got to tell them, guys, can you do it for free? You know, because, well, I got to pay for the name talent, and I can't afford to pay you. You know, in business, you don't want to do that. You want to differentiate yourself. Did I say that right? Now, be different from your product. You want to be different from your competition. You want to, technically, and I hate to say it, to some extent, that's what TNA was trying to do when they started. They wanted to show new talent, and they lost their way. And my position is, I could get local talent, turn them into superstars, and I guarantee you, if with enough publicity, I could take a local indie talent and make him a household name by simply promoting him well enough in an area that we're going to do a show. They'll go do Fan Fest. We'll do our own talk, convention or a press conference. And we did it for Summer Bash 1, where we were at a local arcade, and we did, a little press conference, and it wasn't a big WWE press conference, but the arcade set up a nice table with a podium, and my guys talked back and forth, and they were surprised. They laughed at me when I told them, guys, I want you to come down for a press conference. A press conference, an independent company? Yes, I want you guys there, or you're not going to get booked on the show. Okay. You know, they came down. They did not understand. Independent wrestlers do not understand that if you treat them and make them by putting them out there, you can make them to your superstars. You could turn them into the next WWE superstars if you look at it. I'll say this, folks. I was in TNA for 2 weeks when they brung me down to Orlando to help them out. I got hired as an assistant creative in the staff member. Okay, worst time I've ever been in Orlando, Florida. You know, I brung my wife with me. They got me the cheapest hotels. There was hookers everywhere and crime written everywhere. And I went down there, and I had to deal with their creative people, and I'll have to say Vince Russo, who found my ideas. And I said, look, we should take these talent and put them out there like Vince does. He takes a talent and he makes them a household name. You're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get anywhere with these talent if nobody knows who the hell they are. Who the hell is Robert Roode? Who the hell is AJ Styles? You got to put them out there. You got to give them publicity so fans understand who they are, so they can say, okay, wow, this guy, Robert Roode, came to my area, and he was signing autographs. I know who that is. So when you do a show there, yay, now I know who's the bad guys. Now I know who's the good guys. They found my ideas, or Russo found my ideas, very old school. We didn't want that. We want a reality-based show. We want something. And I looked at him, I says, then you want an empty building. You want these guys to never make a name for themselves. And it proved my point. And I left disgruntled, and I said, screw that. But I can honestly say, yes, I was in TNA for fucking 2 weeks, and thank God I'm not there anymore. I stole the rowboat, and I sailed away from the Titanic even before it set sail.
Now, let me ask you something about TNA. And Lance, I'm going to give you a question. I'll leave you for a question after. Now, we've talked about like the problems with TNA on the show numerous amounts of times. And now we know that Panda Energy was pretty much TNA's money mark, so to speak, of course, because that's Dixie Carter's parents. And we just learned recently that they're starting to pull their money out.
And you know what that signals? That signals that you're standing tippy-toe on the stern of the ship, and it's already underwater. You know, hey, honey, the water is up to my neck. Should we have a problem with this? You know, it's because exactly what I said. You know, and the fans out there, you know what, an investor who has legitimate money, or if you have money and you want to get involved in the wrestling business, I will explain how I will run a business. I'm not going to give away the tricks and trades, what I'm going to do with an investor, because then anybody could do it. But I'll put it this way. That individual he'll make a one-time investment and see his investment back in a short amount of time, monetarily. And you will see the company become a viable company. It will be something that you invest money, or let's say, give a good example. Lance says, well, I got money. How much you need? Well, this amount, Lance. But, wow, that's a lot. Well, Lance, look where your money's going to go to. It's going to go into this equipment, this equipment, this equipment. Andy, you know that, and I'll leave it to you because you know about this. If I say, Andy, you know, you invested money, your money's going to go to better cameras. You know what I mean when I say better cameras, HD cameras, to make your product better.
I mean, people, it's like that. I'm not going to knock any of the independents because everybody's got to start somewhere. But these independent companies that I've had associations with all seem to think that they're going to be running a WWE type production on a shoestring. WWE cameras, and you can check this out, most of the cameras the WWE use are a Sony FS10E. Now, if you go on to YouTube, Google, and type in that make of camera, they're 50 grand a pop. Not 50 grand for the setup, 50 grand per camera. You're just not going to compete. So, if you've got a $20 Handycam, you're going to get shit from it, really. It's
like
not
this.
designed for the job, so you've got to put the money in to get the money out.
Absolutely. And here's the situation. I will hit you with a list of stuff and say, look, here's what I need. And this is why we need this. We need these cameras. Why? Because they're going to make your product look good. Why do we need the sound system? Because you need to have a good, clear sound system. Why do you need an entranceway? Because you don't want people coming through a regular bogus curtain. You know, you want to make it look good. I'm not saying I need $1 billion. Far from it. Put it like this: if you could put in $75,000, you got a fully functioning running company, and that's going to make. It's going to in 6 months you're going to see that money return plus more, because it can be done. Wrestling can be saved, fans, because you know it's going to be it's so frustrating when you're legitimately wanting to do it right compared to other mark owners and promoters who want to steal money from guys. I've seen people, and I know some mark promoters, they go out there and they say, hey, Joe, I got this money, Mark. Oh, the kid's an idiot. His parents got a lot of money. He gives me money, and I let him roll in the ring for a couple of minutes, and he's happy. You know.
Yeah. Now, Joe, I'd like to give Lance a question because I know Lance has been. I think we've only given him a very little chance. Lance, do you have a question for Joe?
Not really.
All right, never mind. So let me ask you this. Now, you talked about money and how you need money to start things, like $75,000 to pretty much have a fully running company. Now, let me ask you, why not just start off with small things like maybe getting a ring or getting equipment?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The thing is, when you're starting out small like that, you're not accomplishing anything, because then you still got to pay the talent, you still got to rent out locations to do shows, and you're not going to see everything back in one shot. It's going to take you years to get this accomplished. I'd rather have, and I'll be straight honest, I'd rather take a shortcut and have an investor put in a good deal of money to invest in a company to make it right now. And I know fans are saying, well, he's impatient. No, I want to make this a legit company. I don't want to start out like a regular bullshit money mark company, little mark company. I want to have a legitimate company that when you walk into it, let's say my arena, because I will rent out, I will have the investor say, hey, look, let's get a building. I'm going to give away this. Let's get a building. It doesn't have to be a big warehouse. It doesn't have to be a huge warehouse. Give me 8,600 square feet, or 5,600 square feet. Let's build this into our arena. Let's buy this. You can make the money back from renting the building out for other events to locals. You could turn it into an MMA arena. You could turn it into a Golden Gloves arena. Hell, you can do bingo in the arena. You'll find ways to make money from it. You'll turn it into a wrestling school. I'm going to give that secret away. So that's one of the things. And when you have everything in place, when you have a building, the ring, the equipment, the chairs, the bleachers, you have a beautiful entranceway. And entranceways are not $5,000, $30,000. You can have one made for maybe $1,000. You get some legitimate belts made up. You get some nice entranceways, guardrails, the chairs, a good banners for your ring. When you put the cameras and you put the speakers everywhere, now when fans look into it, whoa, this is a legit company. Fans are going to respect that. The talent is going to respect that, because they're not going to look at it as, whoa, we're not in a low ceiling convention hall, or we're not in a broken down bingo hall. We're in a real legit business area. If the fans see that, they'll respect your company. If the talent sees it, they'll respect the owner and the promotion. And that's why I say it's so hard to find someone. And before I even finish that statement, even networks will want to peek into your product. They'll say, this looks good enough to be on TV. It's the equivalent of a Ring of Honor. Once you could sell that to a network, because your product looks good, your arena looks good, you can turn from an average, Rick, you were doing my my promos, my video promos. People will see that. They'll say, okay, now we can get you a better equipment to make better promos, better graphics. So when you put all that whole package together, yeah, it's expensive, but you're going to be making that money back, and you're going to be out there as a legitimate business where the State Athletic Commission won't come down and shut your product down, where other legal issues can arise. You can say, no, this is our business, this is our home, this is what we can do with it. If we wanted to sell, let's say, food, we can get a vendor's permit to sell food. So, and it's our money. We don't have to split it with anybody. We can rent out, we can have vendors come in and sell their merchandise. So you got to have that whole big shebang, because if you don't, you're just going to look like every other company out there, and nobody's going to look at you. Woo, I have to drink now.
Well, you know what? I think we're going to wrap things up from right here. Fans, you've heard it all. You've heard a lot more insight of what goes on, not only in the professional wrestling, but independent wrestling, and see how hot it really is. So we want to know, give us some comments. If you have any questions for Joe, make sure you put those questions in the comment section below, and we'll get back to you on our next edition, or maybe even over on our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Hardcore Wrestling Radio. And we also do have a chat group. So for those of you who want to know what that chat group is, look below. There will be a link on this video. We have the incomparable Lance Moss. You can find him over at youtube.com/LanceMossTV. Lance, what do you got going on?
Album reviews, NASCAR discussion videos, redneck bull cooking videos, musical equipment reviews. Tomorrow will be Wednesday when I go live with Lance Moss TV and friends. Follow me on, come check us out. It's going to be at 7 Central. And follow me on Twitter. It's at Lance Moss TV.
He is the son of a bitch, Andy. He's my sidekick, my partner, and he's over at Stoke Haunted. Yeah, folks, he truly is the real-life ghost hunter. Andy, why don't you tell everybody all about Stoke Haunted?
Yeah, if you follow me on my Facebook page, I'll give you the website, and then if you don't know the Facebook page, I'm sure you can find it. It's www.stokehaunted.com. If you flick over from there to the Facebook page, you'll notice that we've just been talking about television in wrestling. Well, I've been approached by, everyone's heard of the BBC, who want to do some kind of feature in the new year. So keep your eyes peeled for that, and hopefully something will come big off it. And we're getting ready for Halloween, which is coming up next month. So we've got other investigations booked, trying to get somewhere sorted for Halloween. And fingers crossed we might have a little... I think it's only going to be a one-off, but I think there's going to be a one-off TV show where we'll be in it. So look out for that one. As soon as I know a date and a filming date, I'll let everybody know.
Well, best of luck to Andy, and everyone here is rooting for you. And last but not least, that's right, folks, he is a classic wrestling manager. He's a real-life wrestling promoter. He is Joseph Knight. Joe, why don't you tell everyone who can find you and what's going on?
Well, fans can find me on Facebook at facebook.com, Joseph Knight Manager. You can also follow me on Twitter at JKnightCWA. And basically right now, I'm going to take a little step back. I got other little business projects that I'm doing that's more legitimately better, than CWA at the moment, Right now, I'm going to take a hold on the wrestling business until, again, I find I could sit down with another business, partner or investor and go through all the legalities all over again to see what we can do to get this company up and running. So, fans, I'm going to do my best to get this company up and running so you can finally see legitimate professional wrestling.
All right, Joe. And again, everybody here, we're all rooting for you. So, and guys, while you have the time and while you're watching this video, up in the corner you're going to see that little subscribe annotation. Do us a favor, hit that button and support HWR. So for everyone here, I am your hardcore host, Rickhead, saying, we'll see you when we see you.
Thank you for listening to this edition of In the Moment. Make sure you follow us at any one of our locations, whether it's YouTube, Dailymotion, and now SoundCloud.com under the name HWR Show. Until the next time, this is your hardcore host, Rick Head, saying we'll see you